Hey there, this is Patrice Washington from Redefining Wealth, and you are listening to the Heart Healthy Hustle Show.
What are you getting after? What seeds are you planting? What are you overcoming? Think big. Think even bigger. Take some risks. God's got your back. Go for it. Don't hold back. Don't ever have regrets in your life. Go fail. Go grow from those things. Live your life.
Your identity is not defined by your successes or your failures.
If you're not happy where you're at, you won't be happy where you're going. Choose to do the things that will make you the person you want to be, that will make you a better person next week and next year.
You're going to have to leave some things you're actually good at behind so that you can find what you're wired for, what you're born for.
Being a world-class entrepreneur is being in every area of life excellent.
It is the little things that are so easy not to do.
The best thing that you can do is assume the best in people.
I want people around the world to believe they can do something great with their life.
If I build the biggest business, but I destroy my physical body and I lose my health, I don't think that's success. While you're on the journey climbing to success, never forget the things that matter most.
If you like this episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Heart Healthy Hustle Show. I'm very excited to be joined by Patrice Washington. So Patrice, say hi to the audience.
Hey guys, glad to be here with you, Jonathan.
I just saw Patrice speak at the Thrive Make Money Matter in late May, early June. Mrs. Patrice C. Washington is an award-winning author, transformational speaker, hope-restoring coach, and media personality. Patrice is a personal finance expert known as America's Money Maven, having tremendous success with her mindset approach to personal finance. She has since expanded her brand and mission, encouraging people to chase purpose, not money. Patrice is committed to redefining the term wealth, using its original meaning well-being. She encourages women and men to have wealth in all aspects of their lives by pursuing their purpose, being fulfilled, and earning more without ever chasing money. Through her teachings, Patrice empowers people to look at life through the lens of abundance and opportunity instead of lack and scarcity. Patrice believes wealth is not limited to money or material possessions. Tune into today's interview with Patrice Washington. Patrice, it is so good to have you. Welcome.
I did kind of get started in 2003. What happened was I was introduced to real estate during my sophomore year in college and fell in love immediately, mostly because of the freedom and flexibility I thought it offered. And I was definitely smart and sassy, as it says. And I thought, why would I go get a job? I'll just, figure this out. So during my senior year, I got my broker's license, and I was a licensed real estate and mortgage broker in the state of California. And my now husband and then boyfriend and I started this business and made it into a 7-figure business by the time we were 25. But shortly thereafter, the recession would start. Shortly thereafter, the recession would start. So here we are, these, fairly young kids thinking that we would ride out into the sunset. Living this great life, traveling all over. We had 16 loan officers and real estate agents and assistants that worked in our business, 13 pieces of real estate property. And we thought that we would just live this way until the day we died. Unfortunately, 2 years into that, the recession started. And when it began, I was actually in the hospital on bed rest, waiting to have my daughter. So I took a fall down the stairs at 20 weeks pregnant.
Oh, my goodness.
And when I got to the emergency room, they said, ma'am, listen, I'm sorry, but this baby is going to come any minute now. And, that was devastating. And I just began to pray and called other people and told them to pray. And so what was supposed to be any minute now, I ended up being in there for 10 weeks total. And at the same time, I'm watching the banks close down left and right. All of the banks that we were used to doing business with were going out of business. And I'm watching the news every day. The banks are closing down. They're crumbling. My loan officers, real estate agents have deals falling out left and right, just completely falling out of escrow. I'm completely stressed. And I wore this belt around my waist, 24/7 that monitored the baby. And my doctor came in one day and she said, listen, Patrice, I don't know what it is you keep stressing about, but if you don't stop, you're going to leave here 2 years in a row with no baby. because the year before I had a son prematurely who passed after 5 hours. And in that moment, I had to make a decision to surrender and to give up this control, because I was used to being the one that could make it happen. And, I'll figure it out. No worries, guys. Let me put, and this was one of the first times in my life where I literally felt like I had no answers and I couldn't do anything for anyone else. I couldn't even go to the bathroom by myself. So I definitely couldn't really help anyone that was outside of the hospital. And I asked them to take the TV off the wall. Like, they weren't plasma screen TV, so don't think of that. Think of the old school ugly block. The box with the little swivel. And then two guys from maintenance team came in and they took it off the wall. And that was around 4 to 5 weeks of me being in the hospital. For those next several weeks, I literally had my Bible, a journal, and an iPod filled with like praise and worship music. Wow. And I just said, I can't. I asked them I gave my laptop to my husband. I was like, I can't. I have nothing else to give this situation. And I just have to trust that when I get out of here, I'll figure it out then. But right now, the only thing that matters is bringing this baby into the world healthy. Man. And so I had my daughter at 30 weeks. And she was 3 pounds, 2 ounces, but completely healthy. Yes. She stayed in the NICU for about 3 weeks. And when I left, so after my 10 weeks plus her 3.5 weeks, when I left, she was healthy, but we also had a healthy nearly $400,000 in medical debt. And unbeknownst to me, my insurance company at the time had dropped me midway through my hospital stay, because I had exhausted some coverage, and between my first son and my daughter, it was all kind of stuff. So they didn't cover much, and no deals had closed. And I was dealing with figuring out, what am I going to do with this medical debt? Plus the fact that my husband had been dipping into our savings in order to keep things afloat. And we were actually several months, after us getting out of the hospital. By then we had to lay everyone off. And we went from that 7-figure business to literally scraping up change a year later.
Oh my goodness. That is huge. So, so much to unpack there.
I know.
I did find, that when you're sharing this, I heard some of this, by listening to your show, which, I'm a young man, so I can't understand what that would be like. But I'm so grateful for your transparency, and I'm excited to get deeper into this and ask you questions about your story. Typically, I'd love to ask you, because you are America's money maven, so I'd love to ask you your favorite success quote, or even a saying that you live by, and what it means to you.
I would say the thing that really drives me at this point is just, my show is redefining wealth. And what I live by is that wealth is more than money and material possessions. Wealth is truly about well-being. And, my whole mantra is chase purpose, not money, because as America's money maven for the last 10 years of doing this, I just found that so many people were so caught up in chasing what they thought looked like success, or chasing bigger, better, brighter, more. But in the process, they were just forsaking themselves and betraying their own bodies and their own mind, body, spirit. And to me, that's just not worth it. And it's not sustainable. It doesn't feel good, and it's not sustainable. And so that's what I live by, is the 6 pillars that I talk about. Is I live by that. Literally, my calendar is made up of that every day, is that I don't want to, again, like I had the, first time in my life, be so caught up in making more money or building a bigger business that I don't take care of myself and the people that I say I love and my surroundings, or protect my faith. Like, that's not worth it to me.
One of the things I, of course, really appreciate your work is the redefinition of the term wealth, using its original meaning of well-being. I have 3 sisters. I have no brothers. So for me, your work is incredibly stands out to me. But for the guys listening, tune in, because this this transfers to male, female. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. So
yeah,
I mean,
well, that's why I said with the bio, you know, when I first got started, I was very women. But the more that I get the feedback from the audience, they're like, I know you talk to women, but this is really helping me heal. You know, I know you say you for women, but this is really helping me change my life. And so I'm trying to tweak my language now, Jonathan, because I understand that community is so much greater than gender. Like, this is a universal thing.
I look, like, I can really appreciate you coming from that angle because, like, it's so, okay. It's very, like, others focused. You have such an others focus, which is, like, I really appreciate that about you. So I have your updated bio. I'm going to go ahead and, like, in the edit, I'm going to include that in the intro there.
Okay.
And, you know, getting back into the interview here, one of the things you spoke about yesterday, I was listening to your show, and you were speaking about empowering women to recognize, and this actually, you know what, this may have been an older clip you appeared. I think it was on, it was either NBC or Steve Harvey show. And you were speaking on the fact that you encourage women in particular to address their finances and to not concern themselves about just finding a man or a partner who's going to take care of that for them. And I mean, this goes both ways, of course, man or female, man or woman. And I'd love for you to touch on this, if you would, on the idea that, you know, you're just going to, like, marry a financially successful man, and that will take care of your finances, not just for the sake of, really for preserving your own self-respect and for building a deeper self-confidence in the area of finance and wealth in particular.
Well, yeah, because, you know, doing so assumes that money management is a gender specific thing, right? Like, as a woman, I remember growing up and hearing well-meaning people, you know, refer to having your husband or a mate take care of you or take care of that. And so it became something that, from my experience, women would kind of put on the back burner as, well, I don't need to worry about that, because eventually someone will come along and take care of it. And the truth is, in the couples that I've counseled over the years, 9 times out of 10, women were much better at managing the finances than men. And, you know, because it's a skill set that anyone can learn, like, period. It's just a skill set that anyone can learn. And so when you walk into relationships with this expectation that this person should be better than you, what if they're not? What if they never really had to learn or manage money in any way particular, you know? And heaven forbid there is disability that comes, you know, up, or death or divorce, you know, like, anything could happen. And so in the event that it does, why would you put yourself in a position where you have to grieve and try to figure it out?
One of the things I can appreciate about what's the word I'm looking for? It's like it's not an attitude of irresponsibility. It's more the attitude of, I don't want to have to worry about money or think about it. I don't see it as, you know, not that it's not important, but yeah, I don't see it as the main priority of life. There are so many people who have that attitude towards money. I steer away from calling them irresponsible. I think it's unresponsible, perhaps. So that concept that, like, you look at money and you don't want to have to worry about it. But the problem is, and this, I think this is a quote from either, I think it's Chris Hogan or something, said, you can't wander in debt, or you can't, you can wander into debt, but you can't wander out of it. So
yes,
the attitude has to be accepting of responsibility, even though you don't, you know, life isn't about money, but it matters, right? And that balance between the two.
Well, that's why I position my work the way that I do, because I'm really into financial psychology. And I was fascinated when I was doing one-on-one counseling with how, you know, super smart people could be so unresponsible, to use your term, when it came to their money. And so I really started to go, I can't just force a budget on people. I have to really help them shift their mindset and change their behavior. And that's why Redefining Wealth is set up the way that it is, because money is the absolute last pillar. But my goal and the way that I teach my audience is to help them shift their mindset about how they look at things and create discipline and do all these things that eventually they connect to how they manage their money. So I almost trick people into being better with money by helping them talk about other things in their lives, because I really do believe that who we are, one area is very much who we are in all areas of our life. And if I can start to just, change the lens in which you look at different things, it really does help people look at their money from a different vantage point, and it makes them more proactive. But at the same time, they are remembering this lesson that wealth is not all about money and material possessions, right? So they're naturally creating better relationships or taking better care of themselves. And it makes money not this thing that we either run away from or we're always running to fill the void or avoid the hurt and pain that we're living with. Because really, most of our financial mismanagement comes from unfulfillment in some way or another. We all just manifest it differently.
Love that. I want to get tactical, but before doing that, I want to delve back into your story, your personal story, because I think it hits home for a lot of people. You did speak about your original business there. You and your husband were killing it back in, up until the recession, and that kind of just hit everybody super hard. So I'm interested to hear, a story about that redemption story. You had your daughter. Your daughter is healthy and thriving, and happy birthday to her, by the way, which she had a birthday. I think she turned 12 recently. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. You're good.
That is fabulous. It's so great because your story is one of like redemption, hope, and courage. You have like so much courage in your story, and strength and resiliency. So I'd love to get into that redemption chapter. So let's go back to where you're sitting in the hospital. You're going through that journaling phase. Your daughter's been born. She's in the NICU for, I think you said 3 weeks. Was that right? Okay. So let's go back to that chapter.
So we get out of the hospital and end up laying everyone off within a few months and shutting things down. Several months had passed. It wasn't quite a year, but probably 7 or 8 months had passed, and we were facing foreclosure on our 6,000 square foot home in Southern California, and ended up moving into a smaller place, thinking downsizing would help stop the bleeding for just a bit. We could still regroup. We were still trying to force things to make sense in real estate, and eventually that didn't work either. It felt like every door or window of opportunity that looked like even a possibility was slammed shut in our faces. And it got so bad that we finally were like, we got to get out of here. We didn't know what to do but run, because sometimes it's a little easier to suffer in silence when you're isolated from people who know you and who have these expectations, because we were drowning in shame and guilt and embarrassment. And it's funny you said, the recession hit people hard and everyone was going through something. I think when it first started, though, everyone was trying to hide that they were going through something.
Right.
And we were one of those people. And because, and as long as many of us were hiding, it made you feel like, well, what's wrong with me? They seem to still be fine. They're still, driving their luxury cars. We had matching Range Rovers that we could not put gas in.
I want to interject here because I was going to ask you, were you guys getting pretty flashy and were you getting excited and pretty fancy? I mean, I wouldn't blame you if you were, because you guys were killing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we lived in a 6,000 square foot home. We had matching Range Rovers. We travel good. We take great care of our team. I was the person to work for. Like, let me tell you, I took such great care of my team and stuff. And yeah, but we did save. And sometimes people get the perception that we were just out here spending money. No, we had to live off of savings and float not just our properties and our primary residence and the business. We floated all of that for several months with our own savings. But that dwindles away very quickly when you have so many things going on and tenants are losing jobs and they're not paying rent. And it was a nightmare. So we ended up selling everything we could on Craigslist in 2 days, from Friday to Sunday. We listed everything we could that was not essential. sold it on Craigslist, and we fled to Metairie, Louisiana, which is right outside of New Orleans, because we owned property in New Orleans and we had just a little bit of money left. And we were like, if we just rehab this property and do the cosmetic stuff, you know, we can put tenants in it, sell it, make some money back, and then go figure it out. Like, that's what we were thinking. We had a contractor that had been helping us, we thought was helping us for several weeks. We get down there and the pictures that they were emailing to us were not our property.
Oh.
And talk about devastating. We literally are there with our baby,
right,
who was at this time just shy of 1 year old. We have no friends, no family, a little money left, and nothing had been done to the property. We lived in a 600 square foot apartment that was teeny tiny. And it was in that apartment that I feel like I got my life's assignment. And it came at a time when my daughter and husband had gone. I don't remember where they went, but they were gone. And I just broke. I was tired of keeping up the strong face. Again, I told you my identity was I'm the one that can figure it out.
Right.
So, you know, but I had been as strong as I possibly could be for coming out of such a traumatic year. And they were gone and I lost it. I mean, a big, ugly, bawling, nasty cry in the bathroom. And I was like, God, why me? Like, what have I done? And at the time, again, I'm still not in the mindset that everybody is going through this. It felt like just us. Like, what is wrong with us? And I'm like, God, what did I do? Like, I'm a good person. I operate in integrity. I treat people well. I just told you, like, I took such great care of my team. Yeah. I was like birthday gift queen. I was giving people anniversary stuff, you know, whatever I could. I'm like, I don't understand. And I saved money. That was the thing that was blowing my mind. I already had a great concept for what I could at the time, teaching myself as a young 20-something-year-old, you know, of saving and diversification and investing in things. I had 13 pieces of property. Like I thought I had set myself up. And to be in this place, I'm in a property in a neighborhood worse than any of the investment properties I even owned. And I'm like, how did I get here? And I was sick and tired of being sick and tired.
So you broke, and this is where you receive your divine assignment?
Yeah, I was on the bathroom floor, literally bawling, snotting, crying, with my forehead on the linoleum. And I felt what I called, or I heard what I call the Holy Spirit tell me to get my Bible. And I ended up reaching for my Bible in my bedroom.
Wow.
And found it found me, Proverbs 17:16. And it said, what good is money in the hands of a fool if they had no desire to seek wisdom? What good is money in the hands of a fool if they have no desire to seek wisdom?
Truth.
And when I tell you, it was like the heavens opened up, dude. Like, I was so like, you know, I was meditating on it. I was just staring at it and I was reading the same thing. It had to be like 10, 12 times. Like, I just kept reading it and reading it and reading it. And so what was coming up for me is like, you've been smart, but not wise.
Wow.
You smart because you are great with book knowledge and you know how to, you know, read. Right? You can read and you can apply things. And in my mind, coming from, first of all, immigrant family from Belize in Central America, grew up in South Central Los Angeles in not the best neighborhood. All I knew as a kid was go to school, get a good education. Like, that is the key. So I continued on. Like, I went above and beyond, graduating from University of Southern California with honors. You know, I started a business during senior year. I passed my broker's exam the first time. I had additional licenses. I had additional certifications. And my life had been this, you know, stream of like gathering more and more and more information, thinking that would be the key to sustain me forever.
Right.
And this one verse dismantled everything that I had believed for the past 26 years before that, which was, you don't have wisdom And wisdom is different than knowledge. Wisdom is the application of knowledge. How do you apply all this stuff that you know? When do you apply it? With whom? Do you seek wise counsel? And all of these things start coming up for me. The fact that I fled and no one even knew, my mom didn't even know how bad we were. No one knew. They thought we just moved because we owned properties in New Orleans. They had no idea what we were really up against. And I did not even at that time know how to ask for help. That was the first time it hit me. A part of this is, yes, there's a lot going on in the world, but you also have never even tried to seek wise counsel. You have you believe that you were going to figure it out because you figured everything else out. But the truth is, what you know has brought you to where you are. That was sobering.
What you know has brought you to where you are. So that being said,
was sobering.
Okay, so I'm just kind of letting this percolate and resonate a little bit. Wow. Okay, so in this circumstance, this still happens every day, right? People win and lose, but people are doing it at a faster rate than ever before with the way the economy is going with online stuff and social media and how quickly you can, make $1 million, lose $1 million, whatever the case may be. What would you say to somebody who doesn't know how to ask for help, who's on that linoleum floor, who's just feeling completely lost and completely lonely? Maybe they're an entrepreneur, a speaker, an author, and there's just no consistency in the cash flow, or their life. They don't know how to take care of themselves. They don't know where to go to seek wisdom. Can you share any tips for that person?
Yeah, the first thing I would say is, people want to support you. And that's hard to hear from those of us who are used to figuring it out and making it happen. But I have learned, and I'm still learning and growing in this every day, that people want to support you. It just depends on how humble you're willing to be and how much ego you're willing to set to the side to say, I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
And when you have been, again, the person that other people come to so often, your expectation for yourself is that I should know this.
Right.
I hear that all the time from people. I'm 40. I should know this. What the heck does 40 have to do with anything?
Right.
I went to so-and-so school. I should know this. How could they teach you everything that you would encounter in life within 4 years? Right?
Age is just summer vacation. Age doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't necessarily.
It means nothing.
Yeah.
Age and wisdom are not synonymous. Like that, I have learned that to be a fact. But I have learned that people want to support you, and they don't always have to be the guru that you think it should be, right? They don't always have to be, this person you saw on TV, or this person who wrote the book, or this there are everyday people out there who know something that you don't know. And they may only be a step or two ahead of the journey, but sometimes when you've been the one to achieve, your pride will mess you up and have you think that, what are they supposed to tell me? I learn things from my 12-year-old daughter every single day. Wow. We eat dinner at the table 3-4 times a week. And every meal, I'm like, wow, that's interesting. Have to look that up.
Right.
Never heard of that. Right. So as much as I'm here in this position to teach her, I've also accepted that she's here to teach me.
Wow. Yeah.
And if you shift your perspective and you lower that guard a bit, you will learn that you can.
Hey, Patrice, can you hear me?
They know something more than you do.
Hey, are you there? Patrice, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, we lost connection for just a moment there. I think you said if you can something like detach from your pride for just a second, and then you cut out.
Yeah. Okay, I'll say it again. And if you can get past your pride and just understand that there is always someone out there who has something to offer, and not think that because you have a better title or you have more education or you started a business that they don't have anything, you'll be amazed. It is so much more fulfilling to build connection that way with others anyway, than to think that you can sit home and Google yourself to the next level. Like some things you can't Google out of, because some things you can read the words, but you need to have the emotion from someone who's actually been there, done that, and lived in some of this stuff to actually help propel you forward. So I learned from people in my audience. I learned from the children in my family, not just my daughter. I will learn from someone in the grocery store if they're willing to teach in that moment. You can learn something from everywhere. You're not by yourself. People want to support you, but you have to be willing to say, I don't know what I don't know. Here's where I am. What do you know?
And honestly, it's terrible too, because if you don't realize this and you live out of I know it, or I should know it, so you posture in that way, you actually, it's very clear to people who are, kind of taking that step back and a deep breath of humility to see that written all over you. So it's actually not a good look. Not to say that people will judge you, but it's pretty obvious. It's pretty clear when you're somebody who no one feels comfortable to share anything with you because you know the answer already, right?
Oh, yeah. No one likes to know it all. I remember my granny used to say that when I was a kid. No one likes to know it all, right? And if you know it all, what can I offer you? That's what you make people feel like.
Yeah.
Well, what can I offer you?
I see.
And I was just talking to my therapist yesterday.
Awesome.
I had therapy yesterday, and my therapist was talking about giving feedback. And as someone who's a coach, I have to be very careful when people in my family in particular say, what do you think about that? Because what comes up for me is instantly, let me help you make a plan.
Right.
Let's go into, right?
Where's the spreadsheet?
So, yeah, I'm like, well, let's make it happen. Let's figure it out. And what I'm learning now is that while I'm called upon, so much for coaching, the truth is sometimes they just want my affirmation, just me saying like, hey, you're doing a great job. Keep going. Even though they worded it as, what do you think? And when because they respect me, say, well, you should do this, you should do that. What it does is make them feel like everything else that they have already tried or did, I'm saying wasn't good enough. And that's not what I was trying to present or project, but it was a great revelation for me. And so that's the flip side. Everyone doesn't want our coaching when we are good. But if someone is willing to say, hey, sis, or hey, hun, I don't know, this thing, and I would love to get your feedback, that's a whole nother thing. But I have the practice of saying now, I don't know what I don't know. I'm so big on investing in mentorship and coaching. I will do it right away. I don't think it makes any sense to wander in these seasons of confusion and overwhelm when there are people out there who have mastered it. Why would I sit here for a year trying to figure it out when someone who's been there, done that can show me in 2 weeks?
Right.
I just,
It's hard to, it's so amazing how much I don't know. And I think to myself sometimes, what if every single person that we meet wants to help us because how we actually care for them? Like, how's that going to change your life versus showing up in a way that has people feeling like, well, what can I even offer you? This is really speaking to me personally. I've been coming out of that unknown. You're blind to it, right? I was up until, you think and you don't want to project that negative, know-it-all or prideful person to people. But unfortunately, even in your so strong will to help others, it can almost come across in the way you don't want it to. And that being said, going back to your story, I want to delve into the richness and the power of relationships, mentorship, how that all helped you go from rags to riches. So you found that divine purpose in that proverb. So, now we're also recognizing, okay, ask for help, how to do that. And then, what action steps did you take from that point?
When I got up off the floor, the first thought I had, first of all, I was still on the floor when I said, God, if you restore me, I just want to help other people see this. I'm like, I can't be the only person who was blind.
Let's go.
To this whole thing. And I was like, whatever I can do, wherever I can go, just send me. I want to figure out how to use this message because I have been speaking. That's how I grew the business in the first place. So it was like, I instantly was like, man, people need to know this. How can I share it? But I'm also broke in a 600 square foot apartment in Metairie, Louisiana, where I know no one. And I had just discovered the idea of blogging like a couple weeks before, because someone I knew was like, oh, I'm, doing a mommy blog. And I was like, what the heck is that?
What year is this?
I was like, checked it out. Yeah, because I had a brick and mortar business. So for me, I was the online world was foreign. I didn't really ever see a need. I was one of those early people who thought the internet would go away eventually. Like, is this a fad? I didn't really use it for anything, which now seems like completely impossible. But back then it was like, besides uploading a mortgage doc, I don't know what this is for. But I saw this mommy blog and I was like, who would want to just create a blog about their kids? Like, I was like, I would never do that. But
is this 2009?
Fast forward. Yeah, no, it was 2008.
Okay.
When this happened. No, 2009, March 2009, actually. And again, I was a brick and mortar girl. So I go, man, maybe I should start a blog. So I found blogspot.com and I started this free blogspot.com, and it was called Seek Wisdom, Find Wealth. And I started to take these different proverbs or different Bible verses, and look for the money or business lesson. I started that the next morning. So this happened one evening, and the next morning I got up and had this idea about, I could do the blog like the mommy blog girl. So I started the blog, and I was like, surely at least my friends will read. Like, this is going to be amazing. So I put it together and emailed it out to family and friends. A couple people replied like, oh, okay, cool. Mind you, they still didn't know where I really was and what was happening. But I sent it out. I would send out, do a post every week and email it out. A few people would reply and say, oh, thanks, or this is good, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I did it every week for a few months. And then it dawned on me that my mom, who I was like, surely my mom would read. I was like, my mom is not reading. I'm like, Mom, what did you think about? And she's like, I'm still behind. I'm like, you're still on the second blog post? My husband, I'm like, what did you think about my post this week? He's like, babe, I haven't really had a chance to get around to it. I'm like, oh my gosh, if my mom and my husband are not reading, I'm doomed. Like, I should stop this. And I stopped for a couple weeks, and I thought, I need to make a LinkedIn profile and get a job, and I had never had a real job before. So I was like, I need to get a job because I'm being foolish. We don't have money. Like, they're turning the lights off every few weeks, cutting stuff off. Like, I need to really just go get a job. And about 3 weeks of not doing it, a gentleman reaches out to me. And to this day, I wish I could remember his name. But he reached out to me and said, hey, I hope you're okay. I have been enjoying your blog. And it was a stranger. And I was like, who is this man? How did he find me? What's going on? I was spooked. Because I thought only, people who you sent it to would ever find it or something. And I didn't know anything about reading analytics or looking in the back end. I only had done enough to learn how to publish. That was it. So my husband came and helped me. And come to find out, I had been getting comments and people had been reading. And I didn't know that. And that was the first time it hit me. I was like, you know what? If I bless one person, I'll keep going no matter what. If one person actually misses something that I'm contributing in the world, then I'm willing to do it forever. And from that day, I got back to blogging. I got back to doing it weekly. I ended up writing for a few other websites that were bigger websites. And then that turned into doing a few local radio interviews. And then it turned into writing for magazines. I discovered social media. So I got on Twitter and Facebook, and, within 2010, like within 3 or 4 years, I actually ended up becoming the money maven of the Steve Harvey Morning Show, where I have my weekly segment for 4 years from 2014 to 2018. I published several books. Like, all of that came out of that man, not my family. And that's what I want to tell people sometimes. When you are shifting and you are moving into another dimension or another season, everyone will not understand and everyone will not support you, but you cannot wrap up your destiny in their validation.
Thank you.
If I was waiting for my husband and my mom, who are my greatest supporters at this time, but in that moment, what seemed right and safe was that I figure out how to get a job, which I still never mastered, but that I figure out how to get a job. But what was calling me and tugging me was sharing this message that was downloaded in me on that bathroom floor.
And
okay. I'm grateful. I was just going to say I'm grateful that I listened and that man reached out. I wish I owe my career to him. Like, I'm so thankful. You have no idea. If he didn't randomly email me, I think he's like an internet angel in a sea full of trolls.
Yeah.
If he didn't reach out to me, where would I be? Like, I hope that it would have come back around in some form or fashion. But that was literally the thing that made me say, you know what? An audience of one is still an audience.
Yeah.
And you will serve and you will do what you feel called to do, no matter whether you understand who's watching or not.
When was the point you knew everything would be okay? Was it like, how did that conversation with the Steve Harvey show start, that mentorship? If you would get into like from, 2009 up until I think you said 2012, 2013, you just kept being consistent, getting featured on different websites, different shows. Like when was the point where you kind of were able to have that cathartic release of like, I'm okay. Like, this is all going to work out.
It's funny. It would be years before I felt that, to be honest. But I still felt like I had to. I felt like it was my duty and responsibility. But I would start to look for what I call God wings, like those little things that made me feel like, okay, keep going. So, yeah. And what I did was actually I volunteered. This is what people don't know. So the other thing I did, got up off the floor after several weeks. I actually ended up going to Atlanta to visit my brother and help him with his kids. He was a single dad. And it was something about Atlanta that made me feel like this could be a new beginning. And my daughter and I stayed on my brother's couch. We never left. I called my husband, like, I think we should be here. He had taken a job at Taco Bell in order to get health insurance for us and support us. And he stayed back in one of our vacant units. Wow. After he got put out of our apartment. And he stayed in a vacant unit that had no hot water, and he rigged the electricity. And we stayed on my brother's couch for 3 months. And while I was on my brother's couch, every day I would go down. He lived in a condo. Every day I would go down to the common area, the business area, use their computer. And not only would I still keep up the blog, but I also would look for opportunities to volunteer at financial education nonprofits. Wow. So my brother would let me use his car, and every week, 2, sometimes 3 times a week, I literally would volunteer at several organizations around Atlanta. But like I said, I already was speaking straight out of college when I was building my business. So people started to take notice, and they were like, "You're not the ordinary volunteer. Where did you come from? What is going on with you?" So yeah, I would take their curriculum, but I would make it sassy and make it my own and do my own thing, and had a lot of fun. And, about a year and a half, it was like a year of just volunteering, honestly, and continuing to do the blog and building up the social media. So I still wasn't making money. The job that I first took, which was in Steve Harvey's office, someone in his office offered me a gig. I made $500 every 2 weeks. And I was like, as long as I could keep gas in my car and, still pursue this thing, that's what I'm going to do. And that went on for several months. And one of the opportunities where I was volunteering, they created a financial management consultant position. And everyone who worked at the organization nominated me. And it's funny, I was on the way. So I have to go back. When I was 19 years old, I also was an intern for Steve Harvey in college. I was supposed to be an intern on the radio for 60 days. And at the end of the 60 days, they asked me to stay, and he paid me out of pocket for quite some time, he and his manager. And I stayed there for 2.5 years. So when I left to build my business, not only was I graduating from college, I also was leaving the original Steve Harvey show that was based in California. So all this time later, they find out that I'm in Atlanta. And when I went to meet Steve and talk to him, I had always left on great terms, kept in touch here and there. But I'm, again, that pride, I would never be one to ask for anything. So they found out I was there and asked me to come in, and they were going to offer me a position, but it had nothing to do with like financial management stuff. And they're literally explaining to me what it would be and how much I could make. And like I'm telling you, I was like barely making $500 every other week. And I said, I can't do it. And they were like, what do you mean? Aren't you broke? Steve used choice language. He's like, what you mean? You're broke, ain't you? And I'm like, yeah, I am. And I couldn't explain it. And as it was coming out of my mouth, Jonathan, in my head, I was like, what the heck is wrong with you?
Right.
Like, you are way too committed to this idea that you have in your head. But I was like, I can't do it. And so even now when people say, you can say chase purpose, not money, because you have money. My first real experience with chasing purpose, not money, I did not have money.
You said no to
but I had
cash.
This thing. Yeah. I had this thing that was like, don't do it. Don't do it, because you'll get so caught up in that. You won't be able to do this. So I didn't take the job so I could continue to be a career volunteer. And eventually that position, it was months later, became available, and I walked right into it. And then I really became known in the city because that organization was connected with so many financial institutions and on and on and on. And I worked there for a little over a year, launched my first book, quit, and never looked back. And when I quit there, that was 2012.
Wow.
I know. It's
the courage to say no to Steve Harvey, though. That's I'm trying to understand that level of resilience, really, commitment.
It was crazy. And even now, in 2018, I ended up being invited back in 2014. So I turned down the job. I get invited back because I had launched my first book. I was speaking. I was doing all this stuff. I was talking about launching the second book. And Steve's producer was like, hey, Mr. Harvey said, do you want to launch it on the show? That was January 2014. My second book came out. And I was like, oh, my gosh, do I? Absolutely. And I went on what I thought would be one interview. It went so well. They said, you should come back on in a couple weeks, because people were calling in asking financial questions.
Wow.
And I came back in a couple weeks, and they said, wow, people are emailing. You should come back in a couple weeks. I came back the third time, and they were like, Steve goes on the air. You know what? We just gonna have her every week because y'all keep emailing and, clearly you like her. So I did that every week. I had a pre-recorded segment, and I did that every week until April 2018. And so I'm bringing this up because when you say, how do you say no to Steve Harvey? How do you turn something down? I left in April 2018 because I had launched my podcast, Redefining Wealth, and found my voice and realized that who I was in that space no longer served me. And when I was telling people that I was going to give it up, they were like, no, what are you doing? You have access to millions of people. But I was starting to betray what I felt like was the truth about wealth, because people kept wanting to talk about budgets. And I was like, man, I'm trying to do something bigger than that. I want to change your behavior. I want to change how you look at that. And I can't always unpack that in a 3-minute snippet.
Yeah.
So I need you to come over here where we can talk for 30, 40 minutes so I can really make sure that you're getting this in your spirit. And I left. And it was the biggest blessing ever, because it allowed me to not straddle the fence and not hold on to what had been good and not be able to go for what I knew would be great. Like, I knew Redefining Wealth could be great, but I knew it couldn't be great if I wasn't all in. And if I didn't give it everything I had. And for the last year or so, that's what I've done. And it's been such a blessing. And I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Wow. I'm really grateful, Patrice, that you are doing that because you're speaking to so many people at a spiritual level too, so much deeper than here's how to fix a budget that you're not even ready to hold yourself to. So in conclusion of the show, I want to jump into your 3 most influential books. Influential, so not necessarily your favorite read.
Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. That book shifted a lot for me early on. The Magic of Thinking Big, believed by Dr. David Schwartz, if I'm not mistaken. And Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice by Dennis Kimbrough, Dr. Dennis Kimbrough, who's one of my mentors. Those are 3 books that have that changed so much for me and just shifted the way that I thought about life and money and relationships and everything.
Listening allows you to multitask. Let's say you're driving to work, you're running errands, cleaning up on a Saturday, whatever you're doing. And that's why I've reached out to audible.com. I became an Audible affiliate so you can get a free audiobook. I use Audible for many of my audiobooks, tremendous selection of books readily available. So if you don't want to spend a monthly subscription to Audible, put in your name and email, at which point you can listen to that audiobook, keep it forever, and cancel your subscription before 30 days so that you don't get charged for the monthly subscription. This way you get a free book. Go to triplehaudiobook.com. That's HHHaudiobook.com. Boom. I have the park bench paradigm, my favorite question of the show. We're going to have you back on, by the way, because we didn't actually get into the tactical too much, but that's also good. That's also good. This could, guys listening, for people listening, this could be very tactical because this is the foundational work that needs to be done in order to actually live a life where you are thriving and, not working for money, but working for purpose. And so that being said, if you could go back in time and you could sit on the floor in that bathroom with the younger version of yourself, or you can, let's go here. Let's, because you've addressed that. Let's go to, let's say, as you're starting to see that success, and you're coming from, you're a born winner. So you were winning. You're an entrepreneur. You never even needed to have a job because you were kind of making opportunities happen. Then the recession hit, so you already won huge. That's something people, I think, is hard to understand. Is like you win big, and then you go backwards. That's devastating. Because you know what it's like to taste that success and to drive the Range Rovers, and then you lose everything and all this turmoil. That's absolutely devastating. So that being said, coming from that and then going back to like this success again, when you were coming into the success for the second time, I'm sure, you kind of, you touched on this, but what would you say to that younger Patrice where she's coming back into success, but this time you're purpose driven and you're oriented towards more of like a Holy Spirit given truth where you actually know what you want to do and why? If you could go back in time and using the pronoun you, what would you say to your younger self in a moment of woman-to-woman mentorship there?
That's a good question. I would say you're not the first, you're not the last, and you will be okay. You're not the first to experience this. You're not alone. You're not going to be the last, and you will be okay. Powerful. Don't give up your hope. Don't trade your hope for anything. Hope is all we have.
Love it. This has been an awesome interview. Patrice, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate your time. Can you give us the audience a way of supporting you? Like, what's the most direct way of finding you, and how can we pick up your book and show you a lot of love?
Yeah. Well, my website is patricewashington.com. So there's all things Patrice Washington: videos, podcasts, episodes, speaking dates, all that great stuff. But I really love to play on Instagram. That's my favorite social media platform. So you can find me at Seek Wisdom PCW. Seek Wisdom PCW.
Patrice, I'm excited. I'm hoping we can set up a second interview and have you back on to speak on some tactical things. Wow, this has really been a power-packed interview. I wish we had more time together.
I know. You're a great host. Thank you so much for opening up your platform to me and allowing me to share my story. And I would love to come back on.
Congratulations on making it to the end of this episode. What about this episode stood out to you? Next, I need your help sharing this show. I want this podcast to impact and reach 6,000 people per episode by August 31st, 2019. And I want us to reach 15,000 people per month by March 29th, 2020. Have you been enjoying multiple episodes of The Heart Healthy Hustle? I'm thrilled to share with you an exclusive invitation to join our new Facebook community. To get to know other Heart Healthy Hustlers, simply go to thehearthealthyhustle.com/Facebook, where you can expect to see different members of our community being featured weekly in Facebook Live calls. I appreciate all of your love and support, and I will see you in the next episode. As always, be generous on every occasion. There is a story for you, and live wide open.